Okay, today is 141 and we are in 1 Samuel 29, and I am going to title this one Divine Appointments. Sometimes when things do not turn out the way we think they should turn out, God has a much better plan, and that's what this story is about today. So David had lived in the area of Gath in a town called Ziklag, and under King Achish, and he was very honorable. The king loved him, and because all of Israel tried to kill David, he was going to go to war with the Philistines to take over Israel, and then he could come in rightfully and become king. But when King Achish had told the Philistines that David was coming and his troops to fight with them, the king basically said, "No way, Jose. Isn't this the man that the women sung about, where it says, Saul killed the 1,000, but David killed the 10,000? What if he turns on us? What if he actually comes out pretending to fight for us and turns on us and takes over the Philistines?" So basically, they said, it isn't going to happen. He's not going to go to war with this. They didn't trust him, and they didn't know how honorable he was, like King Achish had, because David had lived among him for several years and had always been honorable to him. So David and his men were devastated because they got turned away. So they head back to Ziklag, and all of a sudden they see that while they were gone those days, the Amalekites had come in and completely burned down their entire city. They took their wives, their children, all their livestock, and completely burned to the ground everything that they had created and built up, David and his troops. So you can imagine, even David's 2 wives and his children were taken. They were devastated. And this one verse got me. It said, and David was in danger because all of the men could have turned on him. And isn't it amazing that you can be for someone until the bottom falls out and all hell breaks loose, and then they end up turning on you too? So a divine appointment happened. I love God. This is so amazing. There was an Egyptian out in the field, and some men found him and brought him in. And they said, "Who are you?" And he was starving. He hadn't eaten or had anything to drink for 3 days. He said, "I am an Egyptian slave for the Amalekites, and I got sick, so they left me out here. And I had nothing to eat or drink." So they fed him, and they said, "Can you show us where the Amalekites are?" And he said, "Yes, but you have to promise me that you will not kill me." And they said, "We will take an oath. We will not kill you if you lead us to the Amalekites." I mean, is God amazing that this one man got sick. He got left out in the field. David's men found them, brought them in, and he led them to their enemies. So let's read what happens. I mean, this is just amazing to me. So it says, so he led David to them, the Amalekites, and they found the Amalekites spread out across the fields, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because the vast amount of plunder he had taken from the Philistines and the land of Judah. David and his men rushed in among them and slaughtered them throughout the night and the entire next day until evening. None of the Amalekites escaped, except 400 young men who fled on camels. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, nor anything else that had been taken. David brought everything back. He also recovered all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock. "This plunder belongs to David," they said. But some evil troublemakers. So what happened is there were 200 men that were just completely exhausted and they didn't have the energy to go on. And this is why David was made king. I love this. So the evil troublemakers among David's men said, they didn't go with us, so they can't have any plunder. But this is what David said. But David said, no, my brothers, don't be selfish with what the Lord has given us. He has kept us safe and helped us defeat the band of raiders that attacked us. Who will listen when you talk like this? We share and share alike. Those who go into battle and those who guard the equipment. From then on, David made this a decree and regulation for Israel, and it is still followed today, that they share the plunder. When he arrived in Ziklag, David sent part of the plunder to the elders of Judah, who were his friends. Here is a present for you taken from the Lord's enemy, he said. So what he did is A, David consulted the Lord before he went. B, he shared the plunder even when there were 200 men that were exhausted, but yet they were taking care and watching over everything. And 3, he went back with the plunder that David had gotten, and he went back and gave it to territories in Judah who had shown him kindness. He repaid the kindness. And that's why God called David, you are a man after my own heart. You do everything with integrity. Isn't that beautiful? Today's New Testament teaching is in John 11, at the end of John 11 through John 12. And yesterday we read how Lazarus was raised from the dead after being in a tomb for 4 days with the burial cloths wrapped around his body, and all Jesus had to do is speak it and say, Lazarus, come forth, come to life. And he walks out, and even the sister said, but Jesus, the stench on a body after it's been dead for 4 days. And Lazarus walked out, and many people saw. I'll tell you what, it'd be hard not to believe in Jesus and the miraculous signs, because as many people had said before, no one on the earth has ever performed the miracles that Jesus has performed, and certainly not raising a dead body to life after 4 days. Well, even after a day, it's miraculous. So because of that, now the Jewish leaders were really in trouble, because all the people, word spreads when that happens, and Lazarus was a very wealthy, influential man. So you can imagine how that word had spread all throughout Jerusalem and all throughout Israel. So what happened is Jesus goes back to Lazarus's house, and Martha prepares a meal, and they give a big feast in honor of Jesus. And Mary comes and takes out a very expensive bottle of perfume and anoints Jesus's feet and is crying and wipes his feet with her hair. That is the humility, because Jesus had literally changed and saved Mary's life as well. So Judas Iscariot, the one disciple that was going to betray Christ, says, why are you allowing her to put this expensive perfume on you when we could have sold that perfume? It was a year's wage and we could have helped the poor. And that's when Jesus said, Judas, the poor will always be with us. And you don't know that she is doing this because this is towards my burial. It was very significant what Mary was doing. And here's the point. Judas didn't plan on selling that perfume and giving to the poor. Judas had been stealing out of the purse of the disciples this whole time. So not only did he betray Jesus, but he was a thief. So he didn't want that to give to the poor. He wanted to take it for himself. So as we go on, it says that the leading priests were incensed by then, and then they wanted to even kill Lazarus, because Lazarus was making such a difference in the gospel. They were going out proclaiming the mighty things that Jesus had done. The next day, the news that Jesus was on the way to Jerusalem swept through the city. A large crowd of Passover visitors took palm branches and went down to the road to meet him. And that's where Palm Sunday came from. It was 1 week before the following Passover, or Sabbath, I should say, when Jesus was crucified. So that's why Christians celebrate Palm Sunday. They all took palms and they laid them out on the road to honor God. So when Jesus was walking down the road on his donkey, then that was their way of honoring him. And it says here, they took the palm branches and went down to the road to meet him, and they shouted, "Praise God, blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hail to the King of Israel." Jesus found a young donkey and rode on it, fulfilling the prophecy from the Old Testament that said, "Don't be afraid, people of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming riding on a colt." His disciples didn't understand at the time that this was a fulfillment of prophecy. But after Jesus entered into his glory, they remembered what had happened and realized that these things had been written about him. And many in the crowd had seen Jesus call Lazarus from the tomb, raising him from the dead, and they were telling others about it. And this was the reason that many went out to meet him, because they heard about this miraculous sign. Then the Pharisees said to each other, "There's nothing we can do. Look, everyone has gone after him." Well, after that, then they were really determined, because they couldn't control the crowd and they could not control the people who believed in Jesus. Today's reading is in Psalm 118, and it starts with, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever." Doesn't that just say it all? And then the other part that's part of my favorite is, "The Lord is for me, so I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? Yes, the Lord is for me. He will help me. I will look in triumph at those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in people. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes." There is not one person on this earth that can help us like Jesus can help us. Then in Proverbs 15, 24 and 26 through 26, it says, "The path of life leads upward for the wise. They leave the grave behind," because we are going to heaven for eternity. "The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he protects the property of widows. The Lord detests evil plans, but he delights in pure words." Isn't that beautiful?